Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ethereum Core Dev meeting number 102. I'm your host, Hudson, and today we're going to be going over just a few agenda items. Um, the first one is an update on Yolo v3 and the Berlin client updates, and also a subtopic of that is the outcome of the 2718 breakout room. So should we do the 2718 breakout room first, do you think, James? Just to figure out what's been decided there to then see what people have implemented from that, if anything, already?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, we'll start with that, and then if there's any client stuff uncovered related, we'll move from there.
Okay, sounds good. You can take it away then.
Or who
All
wants
right.
to take the update?
Oh yeah, actually, let me click on the link and we can give just the quick summary. And does anyone want to go over the decisions? It looks like Light Client gave
This
a
is
good
for,
summary there.
yeah, why don't you go ahead, Matt?
If you're
I guess
comfortable.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me
Yeah,
okay?
we can hear you. Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the main thing we were trying to decide is how we wanted to serialize the type transactions, and we've already decided how they would be serialized over in the consensus protocol. And the question is, how do we serialize it over the wire? And the main outcome of that was that we were going to wrap the transaction RLP bytes in a byte array string. And so whenever it comes over the wire on dev P2P, it will be wrapped as a byte string. And so we'll decode that byte string and then decode the transaction. That was the main outcome. The other couple of decisions were everybody was mostly in agreement already.
All right. Any questions from anybody on that? Is there anyone who needs some clarification on what this means for their client implementation?
Okay, I have a question. So I'm looking at the outcome, the final serialization block in the decisions in the issue. And so is it correct that it will be RLP within RLP, basically? Or what is the format for the byte string length?
The byte string, yeah, it's essentially RLP with an RLP. We've got the transaction byte that's concatenated in front of the payload, and the payload for the 2930 transaction is also RLP. So it's essentially RLP, encoded RLP.
And so about the motivation, why did you not opt for RLP within SSZ?
I think the main reason we didn't do SSD is that at this point people are a little, fatigued of the SSD RLP discussion. We need to ship 2929 and we need to ship it a few months ago, and so it's a lot faster to just go ahead and ship this with RLP now and figure out figure out SSD in 2021.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, so RLP is fairly recursive, and yeah, I'm sorry I didn't follow the conversation at all, but I'm just curious, why do you do RLP inside RLP, and why do you have this intermediate step of turning it into a byte array? Why don't you just include it directly?
So I think
So
it's actually better not to think of it as RLP and RLP, to just think of it as an opaque byte array. I think it ends up being kind of like that just because of what the value of the type byte is. But we could potentially have the type byte concatenated with, an SSE encoded thing or anything in the future. So yeah, I think it is best to just think of it as an opaque byte array for now that just happens to have one transaction, which is 2930, which is RLP in the spec. But
Right,
there's
thanks.
no requirement for that in the future.
All right, anything else? All right, hey, thanks so much, Light Client, for that update. So now that we have that decision outlined, we can go over Yellow v3 and the Berlin client updates. James, do you want to take that one on and go through all the teams?
Yep. So just an update on where the implementations or just updates in general for the Yolo V3 spec for each client. Is there a client that's burning to go first? Nope. Okay, Besu, can you go, Tim?
Rai's actually the one working on the implementation, so he'll give a better update than me.
Yeah,
All right.
sure. So I'm still working on 2718 and 2930. Yeah, everything else is ready, but yeah, I'm still working on that.
Okay. And Geth, did Martin make it here?
I'm doing the implementation in Geth, so I can say that the implementation is mostly complete. The main thing that's missing is I'm still trying to work out the serialization format for the list of transactions.
I think Martin also is here, so y'all can both give updates.
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly same as Bisu. We're it's just 2718/30. That is the big one, the one we're waiting for, which Light Client is working on.
Okay. And Nethermind?
Yeah, so the last time I worked on 2930, 2718 just to make sure that I have a feel of how they look on the implementation side, and that went very well. And then I just waited for a bit of more clarity on the final serialization format. So it's about finishing and the testing, but I'm pretty confident that it'll be fine because most of the Berlin items that were there before, we have already had them covered, implemented, and tested with the consensus test. So it's 2930, 718 should be fine. Implemented, not tested.
Okay. And Open Ethereum?
Yep, Dragon. Yep.
Yeah, we merged. Yesterday we merged 2718 on our dev branch, and we are mostly ready. Yeah.
And then I think what would be? Is there TurboGeth here? Yeah.
Okay, I guess I can take that. We have Yolo V2 and E2929 from Geth 1924. We made a release yesterday, so I think that's that.
And was TurboGeth planning on joining Berlin? I don't remember. They weren't planning on joining Yolo V2 or Yolo V3.
So we have merged what was in Geth, basically. I'm not sure if anyone's tested it, to be honest. But perhaps we have that.
Okay. It's then, so most clients are on the tail end of finishing the last few changes based on the meeting, the update that we just had from Light Client. Is there, so the holidays are coming up, launching Yolo V3. Is that something we want to try to do in the next week or so? Or what's some general thoughts on that?
I don't really see how that can be done.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't have a grasp of the time like the time left working for the last stuff, plus the holiday stuff's all going to be happening. So
Yeah, I would say let's kill the whole week of the 21st through 25th as any kind of work week because some people will be traveling if you're able to, and then some people will just be off for the holidays. And then, of course, around New Year's, probably that's not a way to do it. We could do it the week of New Year's, maybe if enough people are done, like the 28th, 29th kind of a thing.
Do we need, I guess, we can just launch Yolo V3. We don't need like a call or anything to do that. Like, we can, like, if we don't have, the next call was supposed to be on Christmas days, it probably makes sense to skip that. So, if we keep working on the implementations now, whenever they're ready, they're ready. And I think, if over the holidays or, right after New Year's or whatnot, like people have bandwidth to set up the network, then great. And I guess worst case, I don't know, is it realistic to expect that like the implementations of the EAPs will be mostly done by like, what was it? It was like January 7th. Yeah, January 8th would be the next call after this. And like, if we're lucky, then maybe we can set up YOLO V3 before then.
It's a testnet, so we can go without any worries. Just to adding clients as they have everything.
Your audio is super quiet.
Your audio is a bit quiet, Adria.
Yeah, I think
I think that we can just adding clients. It's in a very relaxed way. It's a test net, so no worries. No worries.
Okay. And what we could do is let's have a date that we check in with all the clients on Discord, and then from there we can make other assumptions. That might be better because it sounds like we don't have a good like consensus grasp on when things are going to get done across majority of clients. How does that sound, James? Just pick like we could pick a date like in late December to like check back in.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can check in next week, and then I'll check in on clients next week just to see how it's going, and then
the 28th would be good too, because people might be on the 28th, but some people will be here at least.
Yeah, so I'll check in next week and then on the 28th. Like,
okay.
Or is next week the 28th? What
No,
day is today?
It's the 11th today, so the 28th is
Yeah.
in roughly a little less than 3 weeks.
Yeah, so like Wednesday of next week, and then the 28th, like mid next week, and then the 28th, I'll check in again. And if usually Geth is the one that's been launching these, but if a client has time and wants to
And the
figure it
capability
out,
to do it, yeah.
and the capability, then just go for it, and then people can join.
Cool.
Does that fit Martin? Like if someone wanted to just roll it up, would that be something they could do? And then people join?
Yeah. Sure.
Cool. So I'll follow up next Wednesday and then see if anybody's burning to launch and deploy. And then that's good.
Okay. Any comments or questions about the topic of Yolo V3 or Berlin or anything that needs to be cleared up?
Yeah, just a quick reminder for the authors of proposals included in Yolo V3. Out of 5, 4 proposals are still in draft. So we would like to see that in at least in review, if not in last call. And the 5th proposal, EIP 2565, that is in final, that is in last call. And I think the duration has been over. So the author might want to move it to final now.
Yeah, and if you do that, contact me, Mike Azoltu, or Light Client to get that merged, and we can help you with that. Other comments or anything? Okay. Next up, we have other EIPs and discussion items. Tim had an update on EIP 1559 and kind of a broader picture there, I think.
Yeah, I won't try to summarize too much of it here, but we had another 1559 call last week, I believe. And the big, I guess, takeaway or new thing was Tim Roughgarden, who's a computer science and game theory professor from Columbia, released a paper analyzing 1559 from an economic perspective and trying to understand, is it actually better than what we have today? I just shared the paper in the chat. It's pretty extensive, and the 10 takeaways are shared in the 3rd page. So if you don't want to skim the 60-page paper, you can just read that. And overall, the paper is pretty positive about 1559, which was nice. So just in terms of UX, he makes it clear that having the base fee as part of the network really helps kind of people converge on the optimal bids for their transactions. and that's a good thing. And that the incentives for miners to carry out the protocol as intended are the same under 1559 as under our current mechanism. The one, I guess, the two kind of more negative sections of the report was one around miners, where he highlights that today there's a lot of negative behavior we could see from miners on the network that would theoretically be possible, but that doesn't happen, and we don't have like a good explanation for that, aside from, you know, maybe the miners are ETH holders or they care about the health of the network, so they're somewhat altruistic. But he says, you know, that could potentially change under 1559. So if you know, if for some reason miners decide to engage in behavior that today they could but don't take up, that's a potential risk. And then the other, this is a much more minor comment about it, is the way that the update rule works in 1559. We increase or lower the base fee by up to 12.5% if we have a full block or empty block, and it's just a linear increase and decrease based on the gas used. And he says that this is maybe not like the optimal way to do this, given that if you have a very quick increase, you might then need to have a bunch of empty blocks to lower the base fee enough to reach the price that people are willing to pay. So it's not, you know, the end of the world, but it's slightly inefficient. So we have someone who's looking into possibly just a better formula for that to have a smoother update. And yeah, so I guess I just recommend anybody who kind of cares about 1559 and its impact on the network to at least have a skim at the report. It was quite good. In terms of other progress, we've been working we've been working on the implementations a lot. So there's a draft PR against the Get code base that's up. The implementations still don't have EIP 2718, so none of them are kind of ready for you know, being merged in clients and master, but they're interoperating together. We have a small test net. So that's, you know, that's a good sign, and we've kind of held off implementing 2718 until it was done in clients for Berlin. And I guess, yeah, the last outstanding thing on the client side that we need to figure out is the transaction pool management. So because the base fee changes from block to block, like the naive sorting of transactions in the transaction pool, if you take a naive approach, you can end up resorting the transaction pool every block, and that's a pretty bad outcome. So we're working to find some better heuristics about how we can efficiently manage transactions, and the Quilt team is helping out with that. So I guess, yeah, at a very high level, I suspect, you know, in another month or two, we should have like most of these issues figured out and the implementations ironed out with 2718. Then there'll be, you know, a bunch of work. There's a bunch of like auxiliary work, like updating the JSON RPC specs and whatnot. But the bulk, I think, of the 1559 implementation should be done. And one last thing we're working on is large state testnets. So because one of the concerns was how would clients on mainnet handle 1559, one part of that is like once the database has a pretty huge state, it becomes harder to process. It might become harder to process blocks that are twice as big. So Abdel from our team has put together call it a large state testnet generator, which can generate a new network with an arbitrary number of accounts and storage slots in a contract. So we're setting up a new testnet now with 100 million accounts and a contract with 100 million storage slots, which is, you know, more or less what we have on mainnet. And then once we have all the clients kind of running on that network, we'll spam it with a bunch of 1559 transactions and see if the clients can handle the load for like, you know, half an hour, which is the max upper bound of what you'd expect on mainnet. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Anybody have comments or questions on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to get people's general opinions on what we're going to do with, are we going to introduce a new transaction type like 2930 that has the 1559 gas fields? So it'd be like a different type, or how are people envisioning those two interacting?
as I understood it, the plan was always, yeah, you create another 2718 transaction. Like,
Okay.
we haven't defined it yet, to be clear, but I think that's
Okay.
generally what people want to do.
Okay.
Okay. Other comments?
The Quilt team is the team that's tackling account abstraction right now, and the cat herders just did a peep and eep with them about account abstraction stuff. So that's something else if you're wanting to look into what they're doing in approach. It's a good overview. They did a deeper dive into like what are the transaction rules and things that make it safer, or they're trying to make it as a safer thing. So core devs that are interested, it'd be good to get an update on that.
Yeah, and the video will be released on Monday on the Cat Herders Twitter and YouTube.
Okay. Anybody else? And do we have any other agenda items or things that we missed out on or that people want to talk about before we jump off the call?
So I have if I can have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, some Geth updates. So we today released what's hopefully the last of the 1.9 versions. And the big stuff for us going forward is going to be the next release, which we're going to launch the ability to do snap sync. But what I wanted to mention really is the security process. We have now started to publish our advisories via GitHub. And that means, so through GitHub, people and other like node operators and downstream projects can subscribe to the event feed and get notifications. And we're also pleasantly surprised by how easy it is to get CVE assignments for vulnerabilities through the GitHub flow. So I can recommend that. We also publish a vulnerabilities.json through our GitHub pages and just download page, well, basically the same place. And the new Get version can do a version check. So it fetches the latest vulnerability info and checks it against itself. So a user can optionally do these kinds of version checks and see if there are any security related vulnerabilities that they need to update. And this vulnerability.json file was inspired by what's already present in Solidity, the format they use, where they also include a regex for the vulnerability, how to detect the vulnerability if it's present. So we did that as well. And this means that we could also use it on the fork monitor. So if you go to forkmon.eastdevops.io right now, you will see a couple of warnings for like the Infura and Alchemy nodes and things like that. And if you click it, it will show the information which is fetched from the vulnerability info. And what I kind of wanted to highlight here is that if any other clients decide to have a similar kind of vulnerability release where they also publish a regex for checking it against the reported node version, then we can integrate that as well in the forkmon and make it generally easier for these kinds of, well, for everyone to check their security posture. So if you do start to work with something like this and implement it, please let me know and I'll add it to the fork monitor. That was about it.
Yeah, I just posted a link to the forkmon in chat, and yeah, it's really cool. Everyone go check it out. And congrats on the update, Martin and the Geth team. Really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, this is really cool. Where is the JSON file in? Is it in the code base?
Yes and no, because it lives on the GitHub Pages branch.
Oh, okay. So there's a GitHub pages
/vulnerabilities, and then there's also vulnerabilities.json.minisig, which we use to verify the signature of it.
Got it. Okay, nice. Thanks.
Today I learned it looks like Cloudflare rolls their own Geth. Is that right when it says Cloudflare-Geth, Martin?
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Okay. Anybody else have comments or anything else for the meeting?
Yeah, I may have a kind of quick announcement regarding 1559. We are going to arrange, the cat headers are going to arrange another peep and eat session for EIP 1559 that is scheduled on Tuesday. If people are interested to know about it and have questions, the Zoom link will be published on the All Core Dev Discord. And now that we are moving ahead with Berlin, and I know there are some proposals which are already ready and that would be seen in future upgrades. Cat headers are collecting feedback from projects and other infrastructure providers on their thoughts on the network upgrade. I'm sharing the link in the chat. So we already have reached out to miners and people we know and we have contacts for. But if any project, they would like to leave their feedback about the network upgrade, the frequency, and what could be done to make it better, here's the link, and we would appreciate your answers to that.
Oh, I'm on mute. Thanks for that, Pooja. What time is that on Monday?
Actually, it's on Tuesday. It's 1:30 p.m. ET time.
Okay. Yeah, 1:30 Eastern. Sounds good. Anybody else have comments or things they want to talk about? I know Light Client mentioned in chat maybe discussing what comes next after Berlin. I didn't know if anyone had thoughts on that. I said in the chat that I kind of assumed that today people wouldn't have that much on thinking about the order or anything like that. But if anyone does, feel free to speak up or anything. Okay. Sorry. All right. If that's all, then I guess we can have a shorter meeting today. Congrats to the ETH2 team. They launched since our last meeting, the beacon chain. So I guess we'll just congratulate Danny and just say that he is representing the ETH2 team today on here. So hooray on that. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks everybody. The next meeting will be on January 8th at 1400 UTC. And happy holidays, everyone. Have a great rest of your week and holidays coming up.
Happy holidays.
Yes, and
Thank
happy
you.
holidays.
Happy holiday.
Cheers.
Cheers all.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.